Hello there, my very good friends, Andy here, and a lot of good stuff has happened in WWE in 2022. The Bloodline, Bianca Belair, Cody Rhodes, Triple H, WrestleMania was pretty great, Steve Austin, all of that. Good stuff happening all over the place, particularly in the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 months or so after a certain executive shakeup. But 2022 has been a completely insane year, and that is mostly because of the bad stuff, unfortunately. So today, we're gonna take a look at that. I'm Andy for What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 things that WWE wants you to forget about 2022. Number 10, Drew McIntyre, karaoke star. Now, reporting on this has been all over the place. Some outlets have reported that Drew McIntyre singing songs with Tyson Fury at the end of Clash at the Castle wasn't supposed to make air, which would explain why it felt so weird when you were watching it in the arena or indeed on the network. Some outlets, however, have said that no, that was supposed to air, which is completely mental. I mean, if it was supposed to air, Drew McIntyre just lost to Roman Reigns in his own backyard, as WWE would have you believe. Ugh. Wouldn't you just be a little bit pissed off? He's just failed to end the greatest title reign of the modern era, dethrone this almighty heel. He's in the UK, he's Scottish, it's all great. Wouldn't you just be a little bit upset about that? Would you rather, take out some stress or get on the microphone and sing Sweet Caroline with Tyson Fury? Weird. Get it in the bin. Number 9, the Royal Rumble disaster. I mean, where'd you begin with this year's Royal Rumble? Perhaps you begin with the men's and women's matches themselves, which were kind of uneventful and devoid of the big highlights we usually get every single year. Maybe you begin with the entrance music, which was just a damning highlight, song after song after song of completely forgettable stuff that really highlights the fall WWE music has taken really since Jim Johnson left. Maybe it's Brock Lesnar winning the Men's Royal Rumble after a tainted loss to Bobby Lashley that somehow made Bobby look like a complete geek. Or maybe it's Shane McMahon going toe-to-toe with trained MMA fighter Matt Riddle. Maybe it's Shane McMahon apparently trying to book himself as the hardest man in the universe and all of his ideas getting shut down. Maybe it's Randy Orton laughing at Shane McMahon for reportedly missing his cue on his entrance. Or maybe you start with... No, maybe you just start and end with Shane McMahon, actually. I think that's quite appropriate for this event. Number 8, the new wrestling narrative. We're definitely putting wrestling in quotation marks there because yes, WWE programming has been a lot more enjoyable over the past few months since Triple H took over from Vince McMahon as WWE's head of creative. But the way some people discuss this new product, you'd think that Triple H was suddenly Bill Watts and that this TV product was peak Mid-South. The wrestling here is definitely in quotation marks because yes, WWE programming is a lot more enjoyable since Triple H took the pen and became WWE's creative lead. Raw and SmackDown are... Look, I used to sit here every day. I have to pick these things apart for a living, dreading sitting through 3 hours every Monday. It's no longer the case. These are fun, logical shows. But the more hysterical people talking about these products would have you believe that suddenly this product is being penned by Bill Watts and we're in Mid-South in the mid-80s. Things have changed and definitely for the better, but this isn't wrestling with a capital R and no G. Yeah, Akira Tozawa's no longer a ninja, but he's still a goof that runs around and steals people's hats. There are no 24/7 title shenanigans anymore, but there are 7 million wrestlers deciding their GMs on every single show and booking their own matches to no end. Impromptu stuff all over the boat. The daft finishes are largely still there as well. And what on earth is going on with Johnny Gargano exactly? This is not a pure wrestling product. It's more of a wrestling product than it was when Vince McMahon was in charge, but it is still sports entertainment. Just a little bit more of a palatable, less antagonistic version of it. It is better, like I said, but let's not try and get ahead of ourselves here. Let's not exaggerate things. We're not quite at that peak level yet. Number 7, cheat code match lengths. Now, please don't take this one the wrong way. I agree, like, short, pithy matches where nothing really gets accomplished, the kind that Vince McMahon would book quite often, where talented men and women were just not given the opportunity to show what they can do. No good whatsoever. But these days, you watch the average episode of Raw or SmackDown play out, and yeah, sometimes you you think maybe we could trim this down just a little bit. Maybe we swung too far in the opposite direction. Do Baron Corbin and Drew McIntyre need 18 minutes to tell the kind of story that they want to tell? I think the crowd reactions to this match and countless other ones every single week tell the whole story, really. It reeks, and it's kind of wild because there's so many moving parts in WWE, but it feels very much like a lot of these longer matches on television are just there to fill colossal runtimes. Some of them are great. Some of them are great. AJ versus Sami Zayn. Loved it. Or Ricochet versus Santos Escobar. There are plenty of good examples. Sometimes a mid-card match just needs 10, not 20 though, and that's a formatting issue that maybe Triple H can brush up on in 2023. Number 6, the tapping up allegations. So it was pretty much as soon as Triple H returned to power in WWE that we got all kinds of reports suggesting that WWE officials had been reaching out to contracted AEW stars saying, hey, you should return, even though those stars were under contract. And you know, names like Andrade El Idolo, Malachi Black, they were speculated, their names entered the conversation, whether right or wrong. They were pinpointed as people that Triple H might want back in WWE. Now, it was revealed in a report by Fightful Select that AEW's chief of legal, Mega Perek, actually ended up writing to WWE's co-CEOs, Stephanie McMahon and Nick Khan, saying, hey, you probably shouldn't be trying to reach out to our contracted talent. So the scenario is either one of two things here. A, either Triple H, Stephanie, and Nick Khan don't understand what a contract is, or B, not two, they were trying to cause unrest in the AEW locker room. I'll let you decide. Number 5, there are more returns than pops. I think it's a great thing that so many of the people who were needlessly cast away when the previous regime was in charge of WWE, all those releases throughout the past couple of years, that a bunch of them have been brought back. I think that's awesome. Dakota Kai never should have been let go, and the list goes on. Tegan Knox, Anderson Gallows, Uncle Howdy, of course. All these people, why? Why did you let them go in the first place? But the thing with these recent returns is that we have reached a case of diminishing returns. Tegan Knox is a fantastic pro wrestler who has had such a rough few years that she deserves a great ray of light. But when she recently returned on SmackDown, it didn't exactly play out to the best possible crowd reaction. This is a flaw of the booking. It's not a flaw of the performers. Maybe it's time, I don't know, here's the thing, to come up with some more creative ways for these people to come back in, other than their music hits, they run to the ring and they kind of get hung out to dry because they aren't quite as over yet as the bosses think they are, and then they get forgotten about, and then they get booked in losing roles, and very quickly they're just gathering dust on the shelf. Look, all I'm saying is that if you're gonna sit here and you're gonna give grief to Tony Khan for signing loads of wrestlers over in AEW and maybe not making the best use of them beyond their immediate debut, you have to apply the same standards here. In fact, if you sat there and totted it up, I'd hazard that Triple H has probably been more prolific in this regard in bringing people in than the AEW chief has in this past few months. Not to start another culture war, it's the last thing we need, but you gotta be fair. Number 4, Triple H inherited his best storyline. This one is really simple. The Bloodline stuff's great. It's awesome. It's been fantastic so far, thanks to the involvement of all kinds of new players like Solo Sikoa, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and everyone tangentially involved with all of this. You can book it through WrestleMania or longer if you want, and it'll still be great. But it wasn't Triple H's idea, was it? It started, well, Sami's involvement in the stable started under Vince McMahon's watch. It's the best thing on wrestling TV at the moment, in my very opinion, but you have to attribute it to the former guy. Now, Triple H being in charge now means it's going to progress more enjoyably, most likely, and it's almost certainly going to end on a better note. But, I mean, this is Vince stuff that we're still going through here, and more on him later. It's great, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't belong to Triple H. Number 3, Seth Rollins and Matt Riddle go 50-50. On paper, this should be one of the best in-ring pairings that WWE could conceivably put together. They're both awesome, they're both very consistent, they have great matches all the damn time. And yet, when they put them together, didn't pan out the way it should have. Now, Clash at the Castle was decent, contrived-ish finish aside, and then we get rolling again. We get into the Daniel Cormier, John Jones style sit-down segment. It gets bitter, it gets personal. Matt Riddle gets super fired up. It's like, okay, we're getting rid of goofy Matt Riddle. Matt Riddle is a killer again. He is gonna destroy this goof in his stupid jacket and his shades. It was tremendous. I was absolutely hooked. And then in the very next segment, Matt Riddle is a comedy joker again and playing things for laugh. And then you have one of the most mid fight pit of all time. And yeah, it finished on a 50-50 note. A rank disappointment of a feud from my perspective. The matches were good, but they should have been bloody great. And this has to go down as the biggest, flop's a harsh word. Yeah, screw it. Biggest flop of Triple H's career as the WWE Booker thus far. It was a real disappointment. Maybe it'd be better if they do it again. I don't know, but the output wasn't great. Number 2, the failure of Damage Control. This one pains me quite a lot, actually. I would consider this a big letdown across the board because you had the SummerSlam angle, it was awesome. Bayley's back, oh my goodness, she's brought Io Shirai, but she's now Io Sky, and Dakota Kai's been re-signed, and they're here and they're gonna kick everyone's ass. What a heel stable this is. What a great group of people to throw together. But the thing with building a dominant heel stable is that you have to make them look kind of dominant at one point, and that hasn't really happened with Damage Control, who more often than not come off as losers. And again, it's not their fault. They are tremendously talented, but their booking has been a major letdown. Bayley in the leadership role, she puts people over, it's good, it's whatever, she's great at her job, but you need to establish these people as big deals before you can actually use them in that losing role, particularly if they're playing heels. And WWE have never really done that. In fact, on their way to becoming the Women's Tag Team Champions, Kai and Sky 50-50 themselves. So, Damage Control from start to finish. We've now reached a point, unfortunately, where the best thing to do might be just to split them up. Triple H can salvage this, I will give him all the credit in the world for doing so, and I still really like all of these people and think they've had some great matches so far since coming back, but as far as their group presentation goes, no, it's been a letdown. And at number 1, Vince McMahon resigned in disgrace. WWE and Vince McMahon would have you believe that at 77 years old, it was time for Vince McMahon to retire. But Vince McMahon didn't retire. He wasn't even 77 years old actually at the time he posted that tweet. Vince McMahon didn't retire because Vince McMahon resigned in disgrace. Thanks to the Wall Street Journal's investigative reporting, we know that throughout his tenure, while he was sitting in that indomitable position of power, Vince McMahon paid out tens of millions of dollars to suppress allegations of sexual misconduct made against him by women who were under his employment. Per one of these reports, and I quote, "The previously unreported settlements include a $7.5 million pact with a former wrestler who alleged that Mr. McMahon coerced her into giving him oral sex, and then demoted her and ultimately declined to renew her contract in 2005 after she resisted further sexual encounters, according to people familiar with the matter, as penned by the Wall Street Journal in one of their reports." So what we can't do with all of this is that we cannot allow Stephanie McMahon to stand in the middle of the ring and conduct a "thank you Vince" chant. We cannot allow the false narrative that Vince McMahon just decided to retire because, oh, I'm getting old, pal. It's complete nonsense. We cannot allow that to continue. And similarly, we cannot allow names like Rita Chatterton to fade into the background. And we cannot forget that Vince McMahon did, in fact, resign in disgrace. That's what history should remember this man's legacy as. I don't think it matters that you enjoyed his product years and years ago. It shouldn't matter that he was successful in his field. This argument that, you gotta hand, complete nonsense. You don't have to hand this man anything. Again, he paid out tens of millions of dollars to suppress some very serious allegations. And this story, if nothing else, is your main takeaway, or it should be your main takeaway for pro wrestling in 2022. This, make no mistake, is the biggest wrestling story of any of our lifetimes, and bad faith actors are gonna try and rewrite history with it. Don't let them. Remember, in 2022, Vince McMahon resigned in disgrace. Thank you, and I'll see you later.